AWS Text Input Description, a control that allows users to enter text input. Prerequisites: AWS account. In user with permissions to create and manage resources. Use cases: user registration forms, search bars, text editors. Steps: create a new AWS text input control. Configure the control's properties, such as the input type, size, and validation rules. Add the control to your web page or application. Challenges and fixes: input validation errors. Use appropriate validation rules to prevent invalid input. Ensure that the input type is appropriate for the data being entered. Use regular expressions to validate the input against specific patterns. Use client-side validation to provide immediate feedback to the user. Use server-side validation to enforce security and integrity constraints. Cross-site scripting XSS vulnerabilities. Encode user input before displaying it on the web page. Use HTML escaping to prevent malicious script injection. Use a web application firewall WAF to detect and block XSS attacks. Use a content security policy CSP to restrict the resources that can be loaded on the web page. Input sanitization issues. Use input sanitization techniques to remove potentially harmful characters. Remove or escape special characters that could be used for malicious purposes. Validate the input length and format to prevent buffer overflows. Use a library or framework that provides input sanitization capabilities. Accessibility issues. Ensure that the control is accessible to users with disabilities. Use ARIA attributes to provide semantic information about the control. Provide alternative input methods, such as keyboard navigation. Use sufficient contrast and color combinations to make the control visible to users with visual impairments. Performance issues. Optimize the control's performance by using efficient code and minimizing unnecessary operations. Use caching to reduce the number of database queries. Use lazy loading to defer loading of non-essential resources. Optimize the control's layout and styling for fast rendering. Security vulnerabilities. Use secure coding practices to prevent vulnerabilities. Use secure authentication and authorization mechanisms. Use encryption to protect sensitive data. Regularly update software and libraries to address security vulnerabilities. Internationalization issues. Support multiple languages and character sets. Use a localization framework to support different languages and regions. Use Unicode characters to support a wide range of languages. Test the control in different locales to ensure that it displays correctly. Usability issues. Design the control to be user-friendly and intuitive. Use clear and concise labels for the control. Provide helpful error messages and tooltips. Use a consistent design language across the application. Integration issues. Ensure that the control integrates seamlessly with other components of your application. Use a consistent data model across the application. Use a well-defined API to communicate with other components. Test the control's integration with other components. Testing issues. Thoroughly test the control to ensure that it meets your requirements. Use a variety of test cases to cover all possible scenarios. Use automated testing tools to speed up the testing process. Use a user acceptance testing UAT phase to gather feedback from end users. Deployment issues. Deploy the control to your production environment. Use a continuous integration and continuous delivery CI/CD pipeline to automate the deployment process. Monitor the control's performance in production. Roll back to previous versions if any issues arise.